All right, we will call this meeting of the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County to order. Looks like we have a quorum. And you have the agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Second. Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda stands. We have several recognitions tonight. We're going to start. Wendy, you want to talk to us about a financial report?
Sure. This year makes the 27th consecutive year that WSACC has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Governmental Finance Officers Association. And I will say that Mr. Wilson has been here for 26 of the 27 years that we've received this award. So he's been a big part in us getting this award through the years. So here's our plaque that I'm presenting to the board tonight. I want to thank the finance team, Shelly Ferris and Sandy, and they play a big part. And of course, Mr. Wilson helps us get everything done. So I appreciate all their help.
Great job. Great job. Okay, we'll move on to two very important recognitions. And I'm going to start with Mr. Fowler. We're going to read a little bit about Mark Fowler. Most of you know most of this, but some of the audience may not. And then we've got a couple of things to provide to Mark. So prior to his time at WSACC, Mark, as most of you know, started with the City of Concord. 1989 as a utility inspection supervisor. 1993, he moved to the Water and Sewer Department of the Water and Sewer Coordinator. He served as he served as the Wastewater Resources Director until he resigned that position in 2011 to join the WSACC team. As most of you know, Mark was also a member of this board for a number of years, served as chair twice, vice chair twice. So he has a long history of dedication to this board as well as to the City of Concord, and ultimately as an employee here. He's retired after about 25 years of serving this board. He's been retired now for about 2 weeks, and I understand that's working quite well for him.
In my butt.
So we've got a couple of quick things here. If you want to maybe come up here, Mark, and we'll get a quick picture. I will say that, you know, you never want to say that a position is the most important position in an organization that gets you in trouble. But the core of what we do is the facilities we operate. That's what we do. And nobody's done it better in our history. And we got some big shoes to fill. Mark, there's a gift to add. You meant to for your wall.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speech. I gave all those at the plant. I fell apart in the last night. I didn't make it through it. I enjoyed every minute of serving with y'all as a board member. And, you know, I was telling some of the folks at the plant, whenever Troy Barnhart and I used to go to the Christmas thing that we had at First Assembly, Troy and I would sit off to the side and we'd watch the employees. Man, these people like being with each other. Yeah, I want to be a part of that. So opportunity came. We did that other project that we won't talk about. So I got the opportunity and I came and raised a group of people, man. I tell you, they'll knock it out of the park.
You're going to be missed.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on to another one. Michael Wilson was hired in 1997 as this organization's finance director. He served in this role until 2009 when he was named Deputy Executive Director of Finance. He was named acting executive director, which was kind of a weird thing that those board members that were here, I'm not sure why we let that go for 2 years, because he was never an acting anything. He, from the day he took the job, he was Johnny on the spot and really moving us in the right direction. So, but in 2017, we took that title away. It says you are our executive director, and that's been the case ever since. He came to the Water and Sewer Authority with a decade and a half plus of other kinds of experience in local government, significantly in financial management. And that's really where his fingerprints are going to be on this organization for decades to come. He really put us into a fantastic financial situation. There's organizations across the state that are envious of this organization and how it's been run, especially from the financial perspective. He, with Mark and a bunch of others, Chad included, successfully navigated us through that project. And, you know, more recently, our plant expansions, which is, you know, first for this organization to go through that in a big way. So through it all, he's had a steady hand. He's made all the right recommendations to us. Fortunately, we've been smart enough to follow most of those recommendations. He's been steady as a rock, and we'll all miss Michael greatly. So, Michael, get you.
It's here.
You are doing it. Here we go. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Speech. Well, I would like to thank this board because you have supported me more than I could ever hope for. The thing that has impressed me about this board is your willingness to compromise at times when you needed to, and not just worry about your own jurisdiction and its best benefit. See the best benefit for the whole county, and that is amazing to see a board year after year after year do that. It is unique, I think, and across the state. The board, at one time, based on the project, we were in some dire financial position, but the board followed our recommendations. That we had some professionals come in with some recommendations, and we followed those. And while it's not always popular to have rate increases and do those things, the board has been steady in following those recommendations, and we received some great ratings from the bond agencies and great rates when we sold those bonds. So I appreciate that, and my successes are based on the employees of WSACC and their dedication, and they have been what makes this organization great, and I appreciate all their efforts. So thanks.
Anybody else want to say anything specific to Mark or to Michael?
I asked Michael if we had to say nice things about him again tonight, because reached out to me to make some comments, and I did from a perspective both as a former staff person in one of the jurisdictions who worked with them for so long, and then also as a board member. And I'd say the same things about Mark, that Mark and I go back till pretty much to 1989, since I started in 88 and worked together as he was a City of Concord employee. And it's just been a pleasure working with both of them, both as a staff person and then now as a board member. I think, you know, steady doesn't really say enough, but the truth is that you knew what to expect with both Michael and Mark, and you always knew you were going to get the best from them, and they were going to represent this organization as well as could possibly be done. And I just really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, one more thing. Yeah. We talked about how critical Mark's position was, and we went through a pretty elaborate process of selecting Mark's replacement. And I would like to introduce Chris Carpenter, who was an internal candidate. Chris competed with several other people through, we hired a organization. They did assessments and some pretty deep dives into some assessments. And Chris was the top of the list. We were very happy to hear that. But you know, when you're looking at an internal candidate and you're looking at people with organizations that had 400 or 500 employees, 20 or 30 years as management, and Chris was right there with them and everything, it says a lot about him, and we're really excited about him taking over. And he has an in-depth knowledge. He's been our maintenance manager all these years, so he knows everything about the plant. So just excited that Chris has taken over. Chad's taken over my position, and I'm excited at the experience Chad has, and we work together, and I know he's going to be the same steady hand that you guys are used to having and coming with good recommendations. So I'm excited about the future of WSACC.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
retirement has got its own obligations for me, so I've got shrimp and I need to go grill. We're going to adjourn if that's okay.
Please do.
All right.
Please do.
What problem?
No problem.
Stanton too. Smoking that.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris, those are shoes that you're gonna have to fill. So good luck with that.
Those are big shoes. That really big shoes. Okay, good deal. All right, let's roll on. Open up the floor for any public comments. Anybody here would like to speak to the board on any matter? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Derek Beach with the Browder Construction Company. Myself and George, our organizations, George was Brown and Caldwell, we were very humbled and honored to be selected for the upgrade project that's going on right now. And we wanted to, I think, stand up here publicly tonight and thank Michael and Mark and their teams for what a pleasure it's been to work on this project. A couple years ago, they tasked us with a pretty big undertaking to get this thing built, and we love a challenge, but it was going to take a lot of hands on deck and a lot of effort to get through that, and kind of in both of their realms of life, and they've been a joy to work with, and we're pretty close to being operational here of this phase of the project, and it's been enjoyable, and we appreciate the two of you and your teams and working together.
Thank you for saying that. Great. Anybody else? Okay, we will roll on. We have some unfinished business for the board. We have minutes from June 20th, the June 20th meeting. To hear a motion to approve. So moved. Second. Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll roll on to new business. Chad, you're going to lead us through some treatment plant expansion discussions.
Yes. So I guess it's been about 3 weeks ago or so, Michael called me on a Friday and said, "You're never going to believe the call that I got yesterday afternoon from Charlotte Water." And it all had to do with some issues we knew Charlotte Water had ongoing with some cash flow challenges that they have as an organization. And centered around the participation in phase 4 of the expansion and what that was costing them. As far back as about a year ago, we had a meeting here in this room with Charlotte Water and to talk about some ideas they had for cost savings on the project or things to help reduce their expenditures that they were going to see over the next couple of years. And at that time, we made a recommendation to them that we could have a bigger share of this project, them have less of a share of that project, and save them the expenditures and help Cabarrus County by getting more capacity right now at this junction of the project with phase 4. They came back to us with a proposal that kind of centered around that. They shot that down a year ago, said, "No, we don't want to do that. We want the capacity." They came back with, as was sent out in the packet, a fairly complex idea of dealing with this that we obviously as staff have some issue with the way they're wanting to lay this out. I'll run through their proposal of what they're wanting to do. So the phase 4 expansion is 4 MGD of new capacity. That would be 2.4 MGD of WSACC, Cabarrus County capacity, 1.6 MGD of Charlotte water capacity. So a 40-60 split, as we did in phase 3. What Charlotte Water's proposing to do is to forego 1 MGD of that capacity essentially forever, just to give that capacity up. That would be capacity that would be WSAC's, and we would fund that completely. And that would be our capacity moving forward. But they would like for the completion of phase 4 for their capacity to be increased from 7.4, which is where it'll be at the end of phase 3, to 8 MGD. So they would have 8 MGD, we would have 26 MGD. They proposed to reserve this 0.6 MGD of capacity and lock in the cost of what it would cost, even though we have to pay for it at the time that it's constructed. But they would let us borrow that capacity and utilize that capacity until we expand the next time, i.e. say phase 5 expansion. At that time, they would get that 0.6 MGD capacity and pay for that at what it cost us to do the phase 4 expansion. Obviously, when I read that, I was like, that's making something simple about as difficult as you can get. It's probably the easiest way to summarize that. The good news is either way, this is a benefit to Cabarrus County if the board chooses to support this, because this is at least 1 MGD of additional capacity in 2027 that we weren't anticipating on having. So that is obviously a benefit there at a cost. So wanted to bring that up to the board for discussion, and just kind of have an open discussion here and kind of get some feedback on how you would like me to proceed with discussions with Charlotte Water of moving forward with this. Wendy did come to the meeting with some dollar amounts, some of this to kind of look at. So if we get into that, just know we do have some of that information if you want some of that as the discussion.
What's the dollar amount of 40%?
That would be the whole 1.6.
Yeah, the whole 1.6. Yeah.
So that'd be 56,182,664, a little over 56 million.
Okay. And then if I'm reading that right, their proposal was to not be billed any of that 56 million.
Correct.
Loan us 0.6.
Yes.
Pay for the 0.6 at phase 5.
Correct.
And I'm assuming, I guess that would be roughly a third of that 56 million. So what, 18?
So 0.6 and 21 million. So if we paid for 1 MGD, that'd be an additional, it's a little over $35 million.
Okay. That's what we would pay. They're proposing to give 23.6
At a future date.
at a future date,
Yeah.
if and when we get there. And,
Yes.
and when would phase 5?
We don't know, because some of that has to do with what the facility plan shows out. Do we do another plant somewhere else? You know, capacity. You know,
But they're willing to kick that down the road no matter
Correct.
what, without any specific date.
correct.
They're okay abandoning that idea.
Yeah. I called and had that discussion with them because I said, you know, there's been the discussion that we would roll out of phase 4 directly into phase 5. That may happen. Okay. But we're not guaranteeing that can happen as part of this. We're not going to want to enter into an agreement that says that 0.6 will be available to you by X date, because we don't know what that date would be at this time.
Is there
They said they were okay with that.
Is there a scenario where that borrow is expired? Is there any point where they would get 0.6 during phase 4 without 5 being built?
I mean, this is a discussion right now that could be part of it. That could be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's my what if you don't build phase 5?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they need the 0.6. What's
that I think we would have to write that up as not a not possibility, because that would then result in us having to go to the jurisdiction and say we got to have this 0.6 back.
Yeah,
Then it could be gone.
Yes.
I mean, personally, I feel like the easy landing spot is, okay, give up your, we'll modify the original agreement. We'll take $1 million off. We'll give you the ability to buy in to 600,000 at a later date. And that's it. We've given them the flexibility.
seems to be the easier.
Like this whole, anything that appears to be giving them some sort of a better deal than Cabarrus County, I think is going to be really, really poor. Like, even if it looks like it. there's a lot of people that don't like the agreement we already have just because of the situation we're in. And anything that appears, even if it's really good for us, anything that can appear, this whole today's dollars, like,
Yeah.
because that capacity might cost us twice as much, maybe 3 times as much later on.
It might.
Right. I agree, with that sentiment that borrowing seems kind of tough to navigate and lock in price and all that. Is just, I don't know that staff would love that. I certainly don't love it. So if that's clear, I think the second question would just be, is $35 million for 4 million gallons of capacity a good deal? That's where you get the big bucks now, Chad.
Right. So, with this expansion, it's kind of the cost of what it is. This is a fairly challenging expansion, being that we're retrofitting the plant from high purity oxygen to conventional blowers. We're doing a lot of rehab in the plant as part of this project. So a significant amount of the cost.
And the equalization.
Yeah, the equalization base. And so there's a significant amount of costs that are kind of not directly associated with what would just be an expansion, that kind of drives that cost per gallon up a little bit. It's work we would have had to have done had we not been expanding in a lot of cases, So, I definitely think that you're not going to build capacity for cheaper than that in the future. It's probably the easiest way to look at that.
And didn't you tell us that part of their financial issue is they're spending more for capacity than we are? Yeah.
Correct.
Could we hypothetically build 1 million gallons in Concord, where we get all the attraction of the Lilies and Red Bulls of the world for 35 million?
I mean, there's the potential. I mean, it's not going to be cheaper than that. It's not going to be.
That's really the question.
Yeah.
Is it a good deal? Could we build that capacity, or could we take it down?
But I think the comparison though is the capacity is coming.
Yeah.
And if we can either make them buy it,
Take that money and
or
build
we
other
don't make
capacity.
them buy it and we buy it, the cost is already set. So it's more of it's more of a, do we want it that bad right now, or do we want to kick that can again?
And then the other complication is that they want to reserve 0.6 and pay for it later. Which if we're not just pulling that capacity back from the jurisdictions and have to build that additional capacity, it's going to cost us more, but they're paying in today's dollars. So that's the part I really struggle with.
Yeah,
That don't make sense.
So where are we contractually right now with Charlotte Water?
they're contractually obligated to pay for the 1.6 MGD, the 56 million gallons, or $56 million for the 1.6 MGD. They're contractually obligated to that. What they're asking is out of that.
If it's not my preference, and I don't know if Charlotte would go for it, my preference is just like to have the 1.6 at the 56 million, unless it is significantly cheaper to build 1.6. If we could build 1.6 somewhere in the county for half, then it's done to do that. But if it's, even if it's within 20%, then
it's also going to take you
now.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's now also,
There's value to the timeline of it, in my opinion.
Right. So I think if we go back to Charlotte Water with, I think I'm hearing kind of uniformly that this 0.6 that we borrow and they pay, that's a non-starter, I think, for WSACC. If we go back to them basically saying, hey, you can either, we'll take the 1.6, we'll pay for it. You just don't participate in phase 4. That is an option. The other option that I think they make is, well, we want the 0.6, we'll pay for the 0.6, will y'all do the million? I think that's probably where this lands. Financially, that's probably not as big a hit to WSACC, but 1 million gallons is a significant amount of additional capacity. So just wanted to kind of get agreement or have an opportunity for the discussion to make sure that's the way we wanted to proceed in our negotiations with.
Our master agreement allows them to buy into the next expansion. They have a right to go buy into the next expansion anyway. So when we decide they can, if they need that 0.6, they can On to the next expansion.
The contract actually allows, if we don't want to expand and they want to expand, they can expand the plant on their own.
So it sounds like they're having more financial struggles than they are growth struggles.
Correct.
Or they've just chosen that the growth can wait and.
It's cash flow struggles, and it's not just our project. It's effective.
And the pump station project too is sort of helping them bridge that gap, I think. So they're gonna pump a lot of flow back to themselves.
So this is as critical as it once
You
was.
kind of got this intermediate plan.
So how do we pay for it? If.
How do we pay for both?
Yeah, right.
Well, we're fortunate enough to have a little over $56 million in grant funds that we have from the state, and we could use that and pay for the whole 1.6 with grant funds, which would be my suggestion. And we could use that grant funds, draw it all down for this project, and that should open up cash flow later on for other projects. If you wanted to, I did run some amortization schedules if you want to know the cost. I just ran it for 35, so that would just be us buying 1 million. So that'd be an additional $2 million in interest every year. And then when we started paying principal, it'd be over 3 million additional to our, 2 outstanding revenue bonds that we already have. So my suggestion would be to use that grant money that we have with the state.
Was the grant money earmarked for anything specific?
That 56 million is up to us. We do have 10.8 for Muddy Creek wastewater treatment. And then there's the almost 1.5 for North Kannapolis primary water leak project. So the 56 million is ours, and that's after the state takes their 1.5% for admin. So we have the money in grant funds to pay for the whole 1.6 if we choose to.
This is part of the larger appropriation, all 3 million of 70.
Right, yeah, it's the 69.9. State takes their 1.5%. And
Well, as far as using SRF funds, you guys in good shape.
SRF.
Or development fee funds.
Oh, SDF. We have 16 million that we can pull from that. So right now we have.
In addition to the state grant.
Right. Yeah, that's in a different pot. So we do have those funds.
So refresh, I remember what we were going to use that grant money for. The next expansion, was that gonna let it sit, or were we
There was the potential, there was some money, we had looked at different projects, one that was originally discussed was the Mount Pleasant force mains. Part of the facilities plan is looking at potential treatment opportunities in Mount Pleasant. We're looking at other potential treatment opportunities around the county. There was a couple other parallel projects that are identified in that first 6-8 years of the master plan that was monies we could use.
Interceptor project.
Yeah, interceptor.
we just have to evaluate those case by case?
Correct.
Figure out a financing plan as we go forward on those.
Yeah. Or system development fees.
Right.
Well, and the benefit of the grant money is obviously we avoid that interest cost.
Right, exactly.
But it also lets Charlotte Water off the hook because that was their interest cost. Right? Or could have been if we, chose to, so if we chose to do it a different way, let's say we chose to finance it, then we're taking on some costs that bailing them out and accepting some additional cost as an organization. Now we get the capacity, so there is a trade-off, but
I did see an article on Channel 9 just within the last couple of days, and they are having financial woes, Charlotte Water. On Channel 9 just a day or two ago.
Yeah, I mean, what do the jurisdictions think? I mean, as far as having that extra 1.6 or 1, I mean, does that really take a lot of heat off you guys?
Well, in some ways it does. In some ways, some recent
with the new legislation, it makes it tough.
Some different pressures on. So everybody knows there was a bill that passed that essentially took our ability away to create a matrix or a ranking system or to put any sort of residential development standards tied to sewer capacity issues onto projects. And we were doing that. Concord, I think, to some degree was doing some of that. So now it's essentially, if you do residential projects, it's whatever. It's first come, first served. Whatever the heck that means. We got a waiting list of 40 projects. I don't know how we decide who gets it and who doesn't. So to answer the question, or at Kannapolis at least, it's a positive, but it does create some challenges. We'll probably have to debate. We've already started debating this with City Council about Just a lot of that'll be set aside for future commercial and industrial development. We just don't really know about yet. That's where a lot of that capacity will go. Can we do some residential? Yes, but we got to figure out a way to equitably distribute the additional capacity. But the demand is, I mean, it's overwhelming, the demand from the residential community. And quite frankly, that bill was designed to facilitate that. The reality is it could have the opposite effect because we don't know how to administer it. I don't know if you guys.
Same boat. It's the any type of what word do I want to use? Because I think somebody told me not to say rationing at one of these meetings, but you know, any type of matrix that we have to put out because we are restricted on capacity is difficult. It doesn't, unless we're adding enough to get rid of these, you know, matrix, and it just can be first come, first serve. I don't know that any of it helps a great deal. That being said, every little bit does help. And so like for Harrisburg, 1 million gallons would equal roughly 100,000 for us. For our allocation, it cost us about 3.5 million on the cost of it. If we were all to pay cash, would we pay 3.5 million for 100,000? Probably not. It doesn't sound like a great investment for us, but for the group, it would probably be best for the county. So we'd be on board with something like that, but it doesn't dramatically change how we're doing things from a jurisdiction standpoint.
Concord helps. What do you guys?
I'll defer the political answer to the but I think about, I mean, the reality is like go back, it's gotten hard, right? Like there's no doubt this has gotten hard, a lot harder than I think we even thought it was going to be. But go back 1.5 years, 2 years, and if somebody was dangling 1 million gallons in your face, you'd take it in a second, no matter what it costs. I mean, probably. I mean, so I mean, from where I sit, I'm like of having the ability to pay for it and to get it in a scenario where we really, really have been trying to get it, like that's like to me, that's really easy.
And we were actually meeting on Tuesday and having discussions around making sure that the decisions we're making are holistic decisions, that they're not just these individual projects that are coming in, because you have to look at each individual project. But then what you really have to do is take a step back and say, but where do we want to be when we grow up? Right. And I think what it does is, I agree with everybody. It makes it harder. And yet at the same time, I think it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, so where are we directing in these pieces? A lot of the discussions we're having too is, are we being good stewards of the community as a whole? We're impacting schools, we're impacting roads, we're impacting transit, you know, all the other things. And so it's very difficult, and it's becoming more difficult by the day. And at the same time, if somebody said like, hey, we could do it right now by 27, by, you know, if you were like, well, it's 32, it's 34, I might be like, well, you know, where are we going to be then? But man, 27, I'm like, we'll take it. Like sign us up for it, we'll take it. And I believe that the majority, or if not all the council, would agree with that.
No, do you?
I'll deal with the tough decision. I'd rather have it than not have it. As Jeff said, we would have paid royally to have it. So, you know, beat me up, give it to me, or let us buy it, and then we'll figure out how to deal with it. So,
Randy, what's your?
But we get a small allocation, but we're finally seeing some growth. So we're down to, I think we can have 66 more houses, and we're completely out. So we're seeing more development pressure right now than I've been there 10 years, and we've seen in 10 years. So, and our water infrastructure, 1.5 years from now, is going to be dramatically improved over what it is. So we could use additional capacity.
I mean, in a weird way, it might affect Mount Pleasant the best, or the most, in the most positive way than any of us, which is a good thing. So, but I'm hearing a fairly strong consensus to go for this. Is there any preference to the 1.6, you know, or the million, or let that just play out?
I mean, my preference would be to purchase 1.6 unless Charlotte really is a strong desire. So we're willing to put my money where our mouth is and buy that 0.6 right now and reserve it right now.
The compromise could be, okay, pay for your 0.6, but this whole future junk just is off. And that would be a vision to the master agreement, right?
So what that would be, that would be an amendment to that amendment, or the whole new amendment. I don't know how that would work.
Be amendment.
We'll get William involved in that one, but it would involve something coming back to the board, an agreement with Charlotte Water and then coming back to the board for the board to approve that and then going to them to approve. So it will be back in front of you for final approval before anything was taking place.
Fortunate we have the grant money. We have a partner who's willing to kind of let some of this go. We have the need for it. I would go for it personally.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we can put some pressure on the legislature to amend some of that mess that they've created in this next session. So I don't have any guarantees, but I would love to at least have several conversations about it anyway.
Well, and I think we've all made the comment in some form or fashion to people invest that we're doing everything we can. We're turning over every rock we can. We're trying everything we can. So I think with that, saying that, meaning that, as we all have, that this is just too good of an opportunity to pass up from that standpoint. And, in one case, it lets us move some projects ahead further earlier than we thought, or it lets us be a year or 2 or 3 later and doing the next, and doing phase 5 or doing the next round of expansion. So it could hold benefits from either direction. So,
Any other discussion, thoughts?
It's good they did turn us down originally because we would have borrowed the money.
Yeah.
Paying the debt service on the full amount because we didn't know about the grant money coming. So it worked out really to our favor.
Surely it's not lost to anybody.
Genius,
Grant
Mike.
amount money is
Genius
the
again.
exact same amount.
Worked it like magic.
No.
I think not.
Look at that crystal.
I'm sure even you agree with that there's no looking at it's 56 million and it's 56 million grant money. I don't know where that sign's coming from, but I think we should do the 1.6 million.
Yeah, we have bad karma if we
Not
don't
lost
do
on
it.
me.
When do you?
I just want to put the caveat out there that it does have to be approved by the state. I've had several emails with the state and there's no issues, but it will have to go through the whole approval process. If the state approves it, we're supposed to be able to use it for wherever we wish. And they said it's not a problem to use it for a project that's already started. So I've already asked that question, but I don't see any issues, but I just want to let you know that it will have to go through an approval process at the state. And we all know how that can go.
Do you know that process? Who approves it specifically? Do we know that?
I'm dealing with David Smith with the Division of Water Infrastructure. That is who my contact is right now, and I've already started the application. Like I was going through it, but I started it to make, and like I said, emailed him to make sure that it's a project we already started. There's not an issue, and so far we've no issues, but it will have to go through the approval process and it'll come back to the board to approve before we can accept the money to go to that project. So,
Chad, you
yeah,
clear on the direction?
Yeah, I'm clear on the direction. We'll make that proposal and talk with Charlotte Water, and we'll be back next month or worst case October with that.
Yeah, Daryl, to your point about the legislation and getting it fixed, now that it's been passed, it's always hard to get things fixed, but I think you can illustrate the problems it's created even more so than you could when we were just guessing what they would be. Charlotte has a large delegation. I don't know that Charlotte Water has any interest in helping get that fixed, but it would be worth the discussion to say, are you willing to get your lobbyists involved in trying to get this legislation corrected?
Well, and our debate was if we get this capacity, it's really residential that's going to benefit. We feel pretty confident, at least in Kannapolis, about our non-residential capacities, and we've sort of set that aside and have a good game plan. We've said no to residential lately, and this changes that, but we're hesitant. So maybe it's now we have a little more capacity. Let's open it up and help us do it the right way. And
yeah,
we'll see if they respond.
Well, the deputy director for Charlotte Water was at the Central Atlantic Council of Governments meeting last night, and his entire presentation was about cooperation. So if he really wants to be serious about that, and it seems like that they know that they are in a bind financially, well, if we could all help each other out, seems like that would be good for them too, to do that and to put some pressure on the legislative delegation. I think the biggest pressure we can put on is to say, we got 1 million gallons of new capacity, but we need for some things to be fixed so that we can deliver it the most efficient and effective way for it to be done. I don't know if that'll sell, but at least it's an opportunity to chat with them about it. And then how many of your home builders do you want us to tell, no, we just don't have any capacity until 27 or whenever it turns out to be, and you're going to be shut out of building anything? Or if you could do this, we could get 1 million gallons of capacity, and then if you could help tweak that bill, we could all go home happier.
Sounds like a good speech, Mayor.
Or they could be crazy like they already have been.
All right, we will roll on to the next agenda item, which is Wendy, you and Thomas are going to walk us through wastewater pump issue.
Let's start. So we are coming before today to ask that Xylem be approved as a sole source provider. Is required by state statute that the board approves using Xylem. If you have any technical issues, print it over to Thomas. Right now, our quotes a little over $215,000 to do this project with them. So we're asking for board approval to use them as a sole source provider.
And our existing pumps out there are Xylem pumps. We have 3 of them. We have Xylem pumps throughout our system. The controls and the replacement part, all those sorts of things are common to these pumps. Xylem is making a few changes with their control system, as we've seen at Lower Rocky River, but this allows standardization with what we already have out there with our pumps.
Have we not already approved in the past a sole source on this?
So you approved one for Lower Rocky River pump station. We purchased 6 pumps a few years ago. We had Xylem pumps there, similar sort of situation. The controls and that sort of thing are compatible, you know, kind of moving across. But this is a different pump station around the corner from Lower Rocky River.
These are all custom standard procedure from no question.
Yes. So I'd make a motion for approved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, Thomas. Wastewater flow acceptance update.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's been a while since we've done one of these kind of on a full sort of basis. So wanted to bring this before you. We recently did the mid-year flow acceptance updates and distribution. That resulted in around 189,000 gallons of capacity additional capacity available to the Cabarrus County member jurisdictions. And then with 79 at the Rocky River, excuse me. And then about 79,000 gallons available with the updates for the Muddy Creek plant. So going through a few slides here that are related. This one has to do with phase 3 at the Rocky River plant specifically. So the total capacity out there for phase 3 that we're starting up right now is 30 MGD. We are required to account for each component of that relative to historical flow, which is this 22 MGD. That's the flow we saw in 2023 at the plant. And then developer controlled capacity and jurisdictional controlled capacity. Developer controlled capacity is capacity that's been officially allocated to a particular project. So for Cabarrus County, you see that number just above 2 MGD with the recent updates that we've done. And that leaves about 3.3 MGD available in Cabarrus County for allocation that hasn't already been specifically allocated through the formal process. We know that you keep internal records of projects that you have in progress, you know, over time. So these are only projects that have come to us for formal flow acceptance. Similarly with Charlotte Water, they have a developer control capacity around 1.3 MGD and jurisdictional control capacity within that 30 MGD umbrella for 0.9 MGD. So this is a reminder. You've seen this in the past. It's been a little bit though. So this is just historical flow over the past several years from 2017 through 2023. This is on a calendar year basis because that's how the state requires that we track that and report that. So in the green, you can see the Charlotte Water historical flows over that time period. And the blue is the Cabarrus County portion. Also on this graph, you see the current Rocky River capacity of 26.5 MGD, and then a horizontal line also for 30 MGD, which is the phase 3 that we're starting up right now. So again, current developer control capacity as of these mid-year updates, right around 2.2 MGD. Of that, about 1 MGD is residential projects, allocated towards residential projects, and about 1.2 MGD is allocated currently towards commercial and industrial capacity. Commercial involves all sorts of things, even down to amenity centers at apartments and that sort of thing, restaurants, all that, and industrial is all lumped in there together. And again, Charlotte Water is about 1.3 MGD for developer control capacity. And this includes some projects dating back to 2017. Thankfully, those are getting fewer and smaller in terms of their overall percentage, but sometimes projects take several years to complete. So this is a new graph that we've put together for this presentation. And this is not, we had to pick a starting point. So 2017, when we say cumulative in 2017, we start from the number of flow acceptance requests and the number of building permits that were pulled in 2017. The green here are the cumulative residential building permits, and the red or brown is the cumulative residential flow acceptance request in terms of dwelling units. So one apartment would count as a dwelling unit, one house would count as a dwelling unit. No differentiation here for number of bedrooms or that sort of thing. If these lines are traveling kind of upwards and to the right together, then the rate of accepting projects and the rate of residential building permits being pulled is about the same. Where those lines diverge, one is getting ahead of the other or vice versa. So you can see in 2021 and 2022, we were accepting projects faster than those building permits were getting pulled. And that seems to have reversed a little bit, at least through the start of 2024 here. So another graph, this is an update of one presented previously. These lines are for projects accepted in a particular year. So for example, the green line is projects accepted in 2019. So you can see for the older years, 2017, 2018, those are basically all the way complete. Those projects that were accepted on a residential basis, 99, 100% complete. You get down to 2020, which is the purple line. Those are about 71% complete, somewhere around 50% for 2021, and somewhere around 23% for 2022. All told, altogether, as of the July updates, there are about 4,400 dwelling units that have flow allocation that haven't yet been completed from these previous years. And then you add about 900 dwelling units that have been accepted in 2024 so far.
And this is Cabarrus County only. So this does not include Charlotte Water.
Right.
Numbers.
Right. These are for both plants in Cabarrus County, but just for the Cabarrus County contributions.
And the numbers at the bottom are what exactly the flow no, I mean, when it started, when it was approved.
Yes, sir. So
exactly what?
Right. So for projects approved, for example, in 2020, which is the purple line, as of the end of December in 2021, they were about 11% complete. Today, those projects are about 71% complete as a total.
And that is the date when WSACC issued the flow acceptance. Yes. Got it.
We have a similar graph here for the commercial and industrial. You can see that generally those projects are completed much faster overall, much steeper lines. They get to 80, 90, 100% faster overall. There are some projects obviously in 2022 and in 2021, there's substantial flow or a substantial percentage of those that haven't yet been completed. But in general, these move much faster.
Can you go back to the one right before this? I'm a little slower on the upcoming, so I was still trying to figure out what Mike was explaining to me on that one, so. I don't have any questions, I just wanted to look at it for a second.
I'm sorry, Robert.
You go ahead, I'm just looking.
I guess, Thomas, I was looking to see if that graph said anything to us about when things got tighter. If the developers went back to some of the capacity they had and built that faster than they had in the past. That is, if a subdivision was 150 units and it would take them 5 years or 6 years to build out, once things got tight and we didn't have all the capacity, did we see that change? But I don't see it in the graph there. I don't see that they went back and said, okay, I got 115 left in my subdivision, so I'm going to work on that rather than trying to get new capacity where there wasn't no new capacity to get out there in the market. But I can't tell that from those graphs. Is that
Sure.
a problem?
These only go back so far. In 2021 and 2022, we shared with you that we were, and just like the previous graph showed, we shared with you that we were getting flow acceptance requests faster than we were seeing the increase in residential building permits. So that was, we were building a backlog of paper capacity. They are just bigger and bigger during that time. Early part of 2024, that seems to have kind of reversed to where the building permits are being pulled at a faster rate than we're getting the residential flow acceptance request.
That's what I would have guessed would have happened when things got tighter and you couldn't get new capacity. You would go build something that you already had capacity for. But it doesn't seem to shake out.
Right, and we agree with your thought process there, exactly. And that's what was baffling to us for a number of those years, that you had developers calling us constantly, calling you guys constantly, y'all have shut residential growth down. We can't build anything. We're sitting there, we've got 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 lots that can be built on right now. And you would have thought that you would have seen quicker separation to where your inventory of approved but not yet built would have dropped dramatically. And it has a little bit, but it hasn't dramatically, and you would think it would have. That was always one that was shocking to me.
I like to use the COVID toilet paper thing. You don't use any more toilet paper than you had been during COVID, but everybody wanted to get it because they were afraid they were going to run out. I think that was.
Well, we do have a anti-hoarding provision in our agreements now. I mean, there's a
So do you
time
have a
frame.
timeline? What is your timeline?
You had to ask me, but there's a certain time frame they have to.
You have to commit and start.
You have to commit it.
We do too. So ours is
ground.
12 months, and then we have a 6-month possible extension.
That's close to ours too.
Depending where you're at in the project, but that's it. And I was just curious too, as you were saying that, like, are those timelines impacting that too? Because we've gotten a lot tighter on, like, you come back. I don't know, Jeff, do you think we're seeing more projects quicker? You know, like what the mayor's talking about of like starting them? I don't feel like we are. I don't know.
The graph seems to, it's very consistent regardless of the year. Well, at the end of last year, the end of 23, everybody started building at a faster pace. We've been dealing with this for several years. You can see they're kind of, maybe the 2020 line took a jump there in June of 22.
I think maybe the gap is that missing piece that WSACC doesn't have. Like, we've legitimately have 2 years of data at the local level that hasn't even gotten hardly to you yet. So there is that missing.
That may be the difference.
I think it
close the gap yet.
I think in theory, to what Daryl said, if you look at the 2019 and 2020, still today, there is 122 units that were approved in 19 and 890 that were approved in 22. We all know in 21 and 22, you could sell a house for whatever you wanted to, just about. If you just listed it on the market, it was sold. So why would you today still have 1,000 homes that could have been built in 21 and 22 and sold before it was even started, probably above listing price? Why weren't those built? That still doesn't make any sense to me to why we didn't see that inventory drop.
I'll tell you, if you look at the graphs though, the 21 and 22, after a year, it jumps. I mean, the first year in, they're building. And those previous years, it was a lot flatter. It was a lot slower growth curve. So maybe our policies are effective.
And this is consistent with anecdotally what we see in Harrisburg, which is a lot of those things that were already approved when we started all this, they're still at the starting gate.
Yeah.
They had their allocate and they're spinning their wheels in the mud, but the stuff that we've approved in the last year, they're vertical.
Yeah.
They're not messing around. So I think our policies do work.
I've asked over at my other life around Baden Lake with some of the developers over there. And I think that part of the difficulty, you're right, they could sell it for any number they wanted to sell it for, but there was so much shock among the developers as to how quickly material costs had gone up, that they were scared to jump in with the increasing material cost, just wanted to wait to see if it was going to come back down. So they didn't build as fast as they would have, that you would have thought they would have built, or at least that's the answer I'm getting.
And the labor shortage, and they had a lot of labor shortage too. Yeah. And so I think there were other factors, labor shortages. I think there were other factors that were, sure.
You create the graph, Thomas?
Yes.
Okay. So great. You got lots of discussion on that.
So my art helped with the editing this one, but we took the graph that we had shown a while back and pulled that to present.
Doesn't it look like an engineer created this?
I don't think we should put any more text on there. Engineering graph I ever see, right? We'll try to fit some more text into one blank spot.
A little more data.
Right. For those of us who are colorblind, the text is very
I remember that comment from this presentation last time, so we
hadn't changed, unfortunately.
So again, this is a similar graph for the commercial side and industrial. In general, these slopes, which is kind of the rate that flow approved in a particular year is taken off, seem to kind of correspond with each other. They're just drawn out depending on where that flow first got approved. Again, the exception being there, the 2021, and we haven't really seen it take off yet for the 2023. So a few notes on this overall, because engineers love text. Again, developer control capacity for Cabarrus County is around 2.2 MGD, Charlotte Water at 1.3. This equates to a total of 5,300 roughly dwelling units as of July of this year. So these are the future residential connections that have that formal approval, but are not yet built. So from 2020, we just picked a single data point here. Around 29% of those projects in 2020 have not been completed as of these updates in June. And we just looked at this also at the rate of residential building permits that are getting pulled. This has been highly variable, I think month to month, but the overall average for 2023 was 161 building permits per month for residential. And that'd be about 33 months if it held exactly at that rate. We know that is, that's just an example figure there. And again, in 21 and 22, the rate of residential flow acceptance requests outpaced the overall rate of building permits. We've seen that overall trend reverse a little bit. We're in, August of 2024. So we'll see how that plays out, to come yet. And again, as far as the capacity and the actual average flows, last year we had an average flow at the Rocky River plant of 22 MGD and change. So that's about 74% capacity relative to the 30 MGD. And I'll be happy to take any other questions you might have.
That third slide, I guess, third main slide. There's two bullet points.
I'm sorry,
slide. The last slide.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah. 29% completed. What does that mean completed? What's your definition of completed?
Sure. So if I go back to the for 2020, the purple line here, you can see 71% of those projects have been completed as of these updates. So 29%, which is 890 dwelling units that Chad referenced earlier, have not been completed that were approved in 2020.
You mean completed actual build?
Right, yes, sir.
Homes built.
That's right.
Individual home on a lot built.
That's right. That's 890 homes that were approved in 2020 that are not yet built.
And that is tracked on a home by home basis, not on a project basis.
That's just one. Any other questions?
So is that still paper capacity at that point then?
Once
That
it is,
29%?
that 29% is still paper capacity that was approved in 2020. It is still that flow that's been accepted but not yet connected.
I see, and all of those don't have any standards, agreements, regulatory. They're gonna be, they could be there for 50 years. I mean, well, you've got limits. If they don't,
Not if they started the project.
Yeah, once they start the project. Unlike the more recent ones that we can, we have standards, so.
What does started the project look like?
It's established in there as significant water and sewer infrastructure and stuff has been installed. Okay. We try to pass that on to a developer. That doesn't mean you have a manhole to nowhere that you just dug a hole and you put in the ground and you got 2 sticks of pipe liner on the ground. It means that you have started putting that in. Now, whether that means 1/10 of the manholes or whatever, we don't get into that, but you know, if somebody's started or if they're not.
So is there an audit? So that's 2 years, correct?
2 years.
Okay. So is there an audit process every 2 years? Is that
Every
how?
6 months.
Right. So then after my 2 years, you come and audit me, and then every 6 months there's a check-in. And does it have to be from my 2 year, then my 6 months, there has to be movement, or if I'm like, oh, sorry, Chad, like.
So the way it works is when we do our 6-month updates, all the projects are listed in there, when they got flow acceptance approval and how many units have been completed from a residential standpoint. And if it's 0 residential units and we see that in the next 6 months, their 2 years is up, then we're going to reach out to Concord or Kannapolis or Mount Pleasant, say, what do you know on this project? I mean, their flow acceptance is about up if they've done anything. And a lot of those cases, we will ride out, or Concord will ride out, or we'll both ride out and look and see. In most cases, as high profile as things have been, people are reaching out to you before that runs out. The most common we hear is, I just acquired this project and we see that the flow acceptance is going to run out in 4 months. And we just acquired the project and I don't think we can get started that quick and everything, then the jurisdiction has the option to request an extension on that project if they want to. You don't have to, but if you choose to request an extension, then that can be extended. But that's all driven by the jurisdiction.
And the way that works, like if it's ours and we lose that, we lose 100% of that, goes back in the pot technically, and then we get 30% back. So yes, there's an advantage from a jurisdictional standpoint, and the developers can just get these things done.
Thomas, maybe a good chance to ask this question. How average daily flow, how did we survive last week?
I was going to ask the same question.
Last week
spend what they gave us.
Last week was really significant. So, you know, Tropical Storm Debbie packed a big punch and stayed around, and we felt effects for longer than we really wanted to. So we were over 100 MGD at the plant for what, day and a half, Chris? Okay. So we have gone out, checked the collection system, all those things that all of your staffs are doing as well. And we found some things to fix and all that, but it was just a big event.
Hopefully the I&I study.
Yes. So
some good data. That's a good point.
Right. Silver lining there, we were afraid the I&I study wasn't going to have any wet weather to give us an idea of what was going on. So we passed that hurdle.
Could you send this to the jurisdiction staffs? I think it'd be good for them to see that update.
And along with that, how often would the board like to get an update on this? Is annually often enough? Every 6 months when we do our 6-month updates to the jurisdictions? We know there's a lot to it, so we don't want to provide data that's not needed, but we can provide these updates as often as you would like.
Oh, if it's 6 months, yeah, if it's not too cumbersome, this is nice.
Okay.
Based on the.
And these graphs will start making more sense when you see them every 6 months, right?
6 months is good.
Okay.
Okay, and that's really the most frequently we can do this because that's where we're going through that detailed project audit.
If it's not too much of a burden.
Yeah.
Sure.
Be interesting to see if, you know, you have 2019 here at 94%, 2020 at 71. In a year, is that 71, 94, or is it 81?
Sure.
That would be a nice trend to see.
Any other questions, Thomas? Okay, Thomas, you're next up as well.
Before Thomas starts, I want to make an additional announcement and let everyone know that Thomas Hahn has been promoted to engineering director as everybody's moving around with retirements, and Thomas has demonstrated over and over again that he's prepared for this position. He is the detail man. If you need a detail on detail of detail, Thomas is the man. I'm sure Crowder and Black and Cottle can agree with that. We're really happy to have Thomas.
I don't know if that was a compliment.
We've had to twist Thomas's arm to get him to accept the position, but he did finally relent, and he has taken the position, and we're excited to have Thomas in that position because he does what he does very well. I'll let you go on with your presentation.
Thomas,
Less detail. Feel free to
I'll tell you the things to be called in detail guy. I promise you that.
You can always take detail out. Sometimes it's all right, we have a presentation on the wastewater treatment facility plan and preliminary engineering report project. We started this project back in March. We are wrapping up the master plan efforts. The last few of those efforts are really wrapped up and kind of moving forward with the permitting piece, but otherwise kind of complete. And this is the next phase of that. So this says, all right, beyond 34 MGD at Rocky River and beyond 300,000 gallons a day at Muddy Creek, where do these, how do we serve the areas currently served by these plants the best? And what does that look like in terms of timing and scope? So just a quick update on that. We have several tasks with this. Brown and Cobble's working on this. George Nipsatakis is here from them. So he can answer any questions as well. We going through and looking at design criteria for any expansions based on projections from Black and Beach and other data that we have available. Existing plant analysis to look at our existing plants, determine what they can do, take a fresh look at that across, and then go through a wastewater treatment alternatives analysis. We've talked about pieces of that here at these meetings, but we'll update you on a couple of those. From that, moving into conceptual design for selected alternatives, and coming out of this project with conceptual design for alternatives for wastewater treatment that will serve areas currently served by the Rocky River plant and Muddy Creek plant. And additional services, sometimes that is kind of off to the side. That is a key part of this because this project remains flexible and how we're doing that. So as we go through, my apologies for the colors, but the red here means that these tasks are in progress currently. So the influent flows and loads analysis projections, looking at permit conditions for Rocky River and Muddy Creek. Brown and Cobble's actively working on that. They expect to have reports to us soon on those things. They will move from there into plant analysis for Rocky River and Muddy Creek, looking at capacity of those plants, modeling updates for both plants, hydraulic model and capacity assessment there, and stress testing of some key components of the Rocky River plant specifically. So that work has not yet started, but will start following the conclusion of task one. Wastewater treatment alternatives analysis. Brown and Coble has kind of gotten a head start into this. We have talked about potential wastewater treatment plant sites at the grounds and potential for wastewater treatment plant in Mount Pleasant. They are already looking at those things, forming concepts for those and looking at feasibility for that. Muddy Creek will follow as well. Probably the reason Rocky River is in progress and Muddy Creek will follow, it makes sense to expand Muddy Creek there. You know, that plant serves that specific area and is a smaller plant. Makes sense to expand that plant there. Rocky River, on the other hand, is a big part of the county. And, you know, it may make sense to look at other plant sites as well. They will move from there into conceptual design for selected alternatives for areas served by the Rocky River plant and Muddy Creek plant. Project administration is always in there. I just didn't want to skip straight from 4 to 6. But task 6 is additional services. We have talked about water quality modeling for Cottle Creek and Wolf Meadow Branch. This relates to potential for wastewater treatment plant out near the ground site. That test plan has been submitted to DEQ for a while now, and field work is planned for August 26th through 28th, assuming we don't have another tropical storm heading through. We need low flow conditions for that field work to inform that model. And we have also done a good amount here of additional biosolids ash market research. So some updates here. We have registered biosolids ash from the Rocky River plant as a fertilizer product. And I believe, Chris, we've got registrations back for 2 of these states, but not South Carolina. Is that right?
Not North Carolina. South Carolina.
Okay, thank you. So South Carolina and Georgia we registered as a fertilizer there. We are waiting on North Carolina to come back. We have met with potential buyers of the biosolids ash as a fertilizer product. And we are looking forward towards processing an initial sale of that ash as a fertilizer product as kind of a trial basis to see how that works for them. This will be a great benefit to us to be able to move that ash off-site. DEQ is kind of restricting the on-site application and what that looks like for us. So if it can move off-site and it can serve a beneficial use off-site, then hopefully that's a win for lots of folks.
But don't get excited. This is not going to be a big money maker. This is a very low cost per ton, but it does have some phosphorus value. And really it's just a means of getting rid of it. That's the benefit.
Right. Phosphorus is it's hard to come by in some places. So to get an inexpensive source of phosphorus is an advantage for some farmers and timber companies that have that. We are also looking forward towards an incinerator inspection and report. The field work is scheduled for that in November of this year. Oh, okay, and schedule, of course. So design criteria, that's wrapping up now. Again, we've been going since early March with this. That is wrapping up now. Plant analysis, getting into that as well. Brown and Caldwell shared last week that they are on track for the overall deadlines here of August of next year relative to conceptual design and wrapping up this project. So from there, we could take conceptual designs at whatever point the board is ready, take those conceptual designs forward towards projects with us. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions for Thomas? Okay, thank you, Thomas. Good work. Okay, we need a closed session. Do I hear a motion to go into closed session pursuant to GS 143-318-11 A1, A3, and A4?
So moved. Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Standing closed session.